Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between, welcome to another episode of the Chaps Chat Cats, a part of the Hoops Crew Media Network. My name's Jake, and I'm joined in the virtual studio by Sambo and Johnny. How are you, chaps?
Good.
Good. Very good.
I never know.
Have a,
I always
full-
tempted to use it as a platform just to like moan on about things, and then I think I should just keep my bitterness to myself.
No. Most of the time, I think the rants are good, but we do have a lot to get into tonight. There's on the show, of course, Cats v Tigers, round 12 recap. The Cats snap a 4-game losing streak to get back on the winners list. So we're going to talk all about that, of course, on the show. We're then going to go over and do the Patreon player focus. Now, there's some young Cats to chat about. Again, 2 of them, though they're not exactly young, I suppose. They're just 2 in a middle sort of age bracket. So maybe the banner is misleading. But anyway, the point is, going to be talking about the performances combined of Tom Atkins and Jack Bowes in the Patreon player focus. So that's what we are going to be getting into there. So if you want to get that part of the show, make sure you go on over and sign on to the Hoops Crew Patreon. We say it every week. You know what you get: extended stuff, extra stuff, early access things, VFL coverage, etc. All right, gonna get into this recap, but there's one more little point of business that we have to do, as we do every week. Chaps, back in the day, the Vikings had to die honorable deaths to reach the great promised land beyond. But you don't have to do that anymore to get to Valhalla. All you got to do is go and visit Valhalla Brewing in the CBD of Geelong. You can go and visit the tap room out in North Geelong. You can go visit the brew hall. Much easier these days to get to Valhalla than dying by the sword or the axe or being trampled by a horse or something. Get along to Valhalla Brewing, the Hoops Crew Media Network sponsor. We thank them massively for their support of our show and all the other shows on the Hoops Crew Network. But tonight, chaps, there's only one topic of conversation on our minds, and that is the Cats snapping a losing streak to go to 8-4. It was a challenging game. I'll briefly recap it, and then we'll go to Johnny for his general opening statements. It was the Tigers who got off to an early good start, a goal after just 25 seconds, chaps. But the Cats responded with one to Tom Hawkins. That then was followed by 3 goals on the trot to the Tigers. A late one to the Cats saw them down 2-2, 14 to 4-3, 27. Tigers, the first goal of the second term to Noah Cumberland. The Cats respond with a goal to Tanner Bruin. 2 on the trot to the Tigers to Mansell and Ryan. And there were alarm bells perhaps ringing. However, they needn't have rung for long. Ollie Dempsey was at the double. 2 goals in the space of 3 minutes to end the first half. Pulled Geelong back within 16 points. They went in trailing 5-3, 33 to 7-7, 49. They got the first goal of the third quarter to Max Holmes. The Tigers got the next one to Seth Campbell, but chaps, there was beginning to be a wave building as Geelong piled on 2 goals in a row to Zach Guthrie and Jack Bowes. The Tigers managed to peg one back, but then it was the Cats at the double again. The Tigers responded to take back the lead with a goal to Samson Ryan, but that was, chaps, the second last score of the night to the Tigers at the 22-minute mark of the third term, because from there on out, it was the Cat show as Jeremy Cameron kicked a goal to end the third quarter to put the Cats up 11-5-71 at the final change of ends, 11-5-71 to 10-8-68. Geelong booting 4 goals, 4 to end the game in the final term to 1 behind. They run out 15-9, 99 to 10-9, 69. Winners. Johnny, your thoughts on a pleasing night for the Cats and a return to form and the winners list?
Yeah, it sort of played out as I sort of expected it, as we said on the preview pod. You don't want to go into this game thinking we're going to win it by a big margin because it's Tigers. They're a good team. They played well against the Bombers. They nearly beat the Bombers. So I think if Cats fans went in thinking this was going to be a walk in the park, going to slaughter them every single stat, I still thought, hang on, it's not going to be that easy. Cats demand other teams play at the best, and that's what the Tigers brought for the first half. They played really good football. Like, it was fast, it was clean, efficient. Everything they did was pretty spot on. As much as they played as well as you would have wanted them to play. And the Cats, they weren't playing terribly. It was just under immense pressure by the Tigers that you could just see each quarter the Cats slowly gaining that momentum, gaining the confidence, gaining the skills, gaining everything that you need to just wrestle back the game. And so into that's towards the end of that second quarter, you could just see the Cats had shifted from defensive, cautious play to bold, brave, daring plays of football. And by the end of that third quarter, the Cats, yeah, even at the start of that third quarter, at the end of the second quarter, sorry, I thought the Cats have got this in the bag. We're going to win this fairly comfortably. And they did. They ran over the top of the Tigers. Yes, the Tigers have lots of injuries and all this, and lots of young guys, but a win's a win. We take the win, we move on. We also had lots of young guys in our team. We also had a very inexperienced midfield, but that's football sometimes. Take a win, you take a loss, we move on. But yeah, it was a very pleasing victory, especially the way the young guys were able to step up when it mattered and really took the game to the Tigers, especially in that midfield, and came out on top big way. So yeah, very pleasing to see the challenge and the way they responded and how they're able to get really on top of that Tigers midfield in that third and fourth quarter and just really blow them out of the water. So yeah, two big thumbs up for me.
Sambo? Oh, sorry.
Oh, good.
I just went a beat too early.
Yeah.
Sambo, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think Johnny summed a lot of it up pretty well. I think that we were all feeling like Cats had every right, every reason, every chance to win that game. But not only is it the Tigers, but it's AFL and the competition's incredibly even. And as we're reminded constantly, it doesn't take a big slip up for a team that's way, way down on the ladder to take an opportunity. We've seen it countless times this year. Not only against the Cats, obviously, but just all around the competition. My 2-7 tipping results. This is 2 out of 7 tipping results this round goes to show. Although to be fair, 2 of those results were not the ones I thought I'd tip. So I thought I'd gotten 4. So I thought I was all right, but nothing too. But yeah, I was pretty happy. Like, I think, we broke down our season by quarters earlier, a couple of weeks ago, which is pretty interesting. We could see that we've been slow starts and we've been even slower in second quarters. So that was kind of on my mind, and it kind of came true once again. And so there is, there was some frustration there. I would say from my end, mostly at the umpires. I'm not going to go into any of that because I'm not trying to hang anything on the umpires. But in the heat of the moment, there were some things that to me and to all of us sitting there felt incorrect, and we let the TV know about that. But but I think and there was a bit of a bit of a breakdown here and there in the Cats, but there was a lot of work rate from those players that ended up being the match winners for us. I think their work rate was unquestioned from the first bounce onwards, so that was a real positive for me, that we did have some some players that needed to step up in the second half, etc. But we did have, that sort of core group there that came to win and carried the team a little bit in that first half. I just to touch on sort of what you said, Johnny, about like obviously a lot of people are bringing up the age of the Tigers. The average age was only a year different from the Cats to the Tigers side that was fielded. So yeah, I know, I know we are more experienced, and we had some really experienced players out there. We certainly had a higher percentage of our sort of champion experienced players than the Tigers did.
Mm.
But yeah, just to say it was a young Tigers side versus like the elite Cat side is not entirely accurate either. I came away feeling really good, as I was sort of saying before. It is interesting to look at it by quarters, and there's some things that need to be touched up and tuned up. If you look at in the stats from quarter to quarter, but overall, if you look at that game, like I think a lot of people or the media are really focusing hard on that first quarter, and the second quarter. But you do have to take the whole game at the end of the day. As much as you can analyze quarter by quarter, you do have to take the result and the whole game as one performance. And I was really happy. I think it reinstilled a bit of belief, a bit of confidence. Like I think we'd kind of inhabited a bit of a losing mentality over the last month that, we were unbeatable. And then some of these young guys that hadn't been there for as long were on cloud nine. And once they saw that we were, we could bleed, they were like, oh my God, this team I'm in can lose. It can be hard to sort of stop that, to stem the flow. And so I think, not to say we're going to turn around and smash Sydney next week or anything, but I think a real positive out of it is just reinstilling that belief and showing the Cats what happens when we can play our brand of football.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's funny looking back at the last 4 weeks in that quarter by quarter breakdown. This is just the last month. Saints, the Demons, Power, Suns, and Giants games. Geelong have, including this game, now lost all but 2 of their first and second quarters in the last month. But importantly, our previous highest score in a second quarter in the last month was 15 points against the Power. We lost that second quarter 15-27 against Port. Apart from that, it was 4 points against the Demons, 8 points against the Suns, 8 points against the Giants. So to score 19 points to 22 in that second quarter really did keep Geelong in the game, those last 2 goals. But look, just to add my 5 cents worth, I'd just say, there were moments where we're like, oh, good that the Tigers missed a shot there, here or there. The way Geelong closed out the second half, like obviously it's great that the Tigers didn't get those extra goals. But at the end of the day, they kicked 10-9, 69 to 15-9. Geelong fashioned 5 extra scoring opportunities. As I said, after that goal to Samson Ryan at the 22-minute mark of the third term, I can see one more score for the Tigers after that, which was a rush behind at the 22-minute mark of the final term. So the second half, the Cats really did boss it. 10 goals, 66 to 3 goals to 20. Massive turnaround. Sambo, I want to sort of come back to you for some specifics, but I also do want to just run through a couple of the basic stats here. Obviously, as we said, 15-9, 99 to the Cats, 10-9, 69 to the Tigers. Ollie Dempsey kicks 3 goals straight. Shannon Neal, 2 straight. Tom Hawkins, 2 straight. For the Tigers, it was Ryan with 2 straight. Martin with 2 straight. Is it Lafau? Is that his name? Lafau?
Yeah,
Is that how you
I think
pronounce
so,
it?
yeah.
2 goals, 1. Holmes, 29 disposals, Bowes, 29 disposals, Mitch Duncan, and a couple of other players all got 27. For the Tigers, it was Baker with 31, Short with 22, and Rioli with 20. Sambo, you wanted to talk a bit about how Geelong structured up, because it was a big thing we've talked about the last month, I guess, and even in some of the games we were winning. What did you sort of see? What did you notice that looked the same maybe early and then looked different? What were the main takeaways from you there on that topic?
Well, like early, it was really still um that defensive structure that I think we were just a little disorganized. There was a lot of times when players are holding their hands up, looking at each other, saying who was on him, who was on that bloke. And I'd sort of hoped that with Duncan back in the side, a bit of that would be ironed out. So it's clearly maybe a deeper issue than just a lack of experience. Probably more to do with less of a lack of experience in leaders and more of a lack of experience in the whole unit working together now, I suppose. But also going back to that sort of the winning mentality or losing mentality, that maybe it's been a lot of pressure sort of sneaking into the back line, like got to perform, overthinking things, sort of trying to play out of their skin and take too much on board themselves. And so I think that was something that increased dramatically in the second half, was that backline organization. Now, I don't think we were back to our absolute best, but but I think the midfield stepped up to such a degree that the defense wasn't tested that much in that second half. So they didn't have to kind of, and that's how it should work. The midfield should be performing their role, and the defense should only have to step up when they need to, as opposed to at every sort of stoppage. But I think that it was kind of like, this is one of the first games all year, I would say, won so many of those midfield stats, the clearances and all that sort of stuff. And I think it was really encouraging. And I do, obviously we want to talk about those players that helped us achieve that. But I think it's kind of, this, I don't want to say this in a really negative way, but it's kind of like a half, to me, is a blueprint of half a good game. If our midfield can operate like this, even against the Swans, even against the Bulldogs, who are, they're probably gonna beat us in those field numbers. But if we can perform somewhere in this region against those teams, then that's one really good avenue to goal. It's a really good avenue to apply pressure to the opposition. And the other half of it is the turnover game. I don't think our turnovers were as strong as they were in that 7-win stretch. So I think that as much as the midfield's copping so much punishment in the media and the surrounds, I think it's still that transition game from turnovers. And I think what we were seeing was more turnovers, even from those turnovers that we got. I think a higher percentage of them were turnovers in their back half, as opposed to turnovers and then scoring from our defensive 50, because those stats are a little bit down on when we were flying high. So I think, yeah, in general terms, I think the backline structure was quite disorganized and haphazard in the first half, and we did shore that up. But I think the proof in the pudding that we were the midfield performance is enough to beat almost anyone if we can combine that with our optimum scores from the back half of turnovers that we were showing earlier in the year. You might be muted, Jake.
Yeah.
Finally got me. Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. I think it was a good win because I thought that, from my point of view, it wasn't a win where we came out and absolutely blitzed the team from the start. In fact, we found ourselves in a very familiar scenario. Opposition gets an early one. The opposition, in fact, get 4 of the first 5 goals of the game, and you're sitting there as a Cats fan thinking, "Oh boy." And then when we get back into the game with a goal of our own, they get a couple more, and suddenly it's nearly out to 5 goals. And I wasn't on Twitter, I don't think. I think pretty much stayed off it during the game, but I can imagine a lot of the responses online just being, here we go again. It's the same
Mm.
environment, it's the same situation. What are we going to do? And I just felt like Geelong probably remedied it a little earlier. Something that I really liked, and this will sort of help transition probably a little bit into what I know you're keen to talk about, John, is that I don't know if you chaps gave an interview earlier in the year. I'm sure it was Ollie Dempsey who said, it's our turn, sort of thing. Where it's this next wave's turn to step up and lead and capture the big moments and get the games going our way. And Johnny, it was those players that turned it around before it was too late. It was Ollie Dempsey himself who got the back-to-back goals, good goals too, particularly that second one that he got just before halftime. What were your sort of thoughts? Obviously, selection's been a massive topic of conversation, but what were your thoughts on this game? How the selection of players went? Geelong's persistence, I suppose, with a number of players.
Yeah, I thought the selections worked out perfectly fine. Like we lost Oliver Dempsey pretty early on to hamstring. Not Ollie Dempsey, sorry.
Is that
Jack
Henry?
Oliver Henry.
Yep.
Dempsey on the mind, for obvious reasons.
Did he go out
Oliver,
injured, did he? There
yeah,
you go. I didn't know.
hamstring awareness. So he's got a slight hamstring injury. So it sounds like he probably won't be playing against the Swans. So he went out. It could have just been,
Hamstring awareness.
we don't want to say we're just pulling him because he didn't play exceptional up to that point. But we had Gary Rowan to come in, and Gary Rowan does what Gary Rowan does each and every single game. He doesn't have a lot of touches. He doesn't have a lot of just goals or marks or whatever all those stats that people like to point out. But his impact on the game is bigger than what the stats point to, because he brings that pressure, that ferociousness, the willingness to just keep performing and keep impacting the game, even if it is detrimental to his own game. And that can help young guys going, oh, if we want to play at an AFL level, this is the level we need to be at. See what Gary Rowan's doing every single game, see what Tom Stewart's doing every single game. And also Mark O'Connor. I thought it was a really great game by Mark O'Connor coming in, replacing one of the midfielders where everyone's like, midfielders are replacing midfielders with these guys. Well, they showed exactly why they replaced the midfielders with Mark O'Connor and Gary Rowan, because it's that little bit of extra experience. They know how to shut down players. They know how to bring that extra pressure, bring that tackling pressure, and that experience, as I said. And it's the time for the young guys to stand up, and that's exactly what happened. We had Tom Atkins stand up. We had Jack Bowes stand up, even though they may not be the younger guys, but then the next step from your Dangerfields, your Mark Blixavs, your Tom Stewarts, Gary Rowan, Tom Hawkins, Jeremy Cameron. They're the next guys coming through in that next bracket. That's going to be the leaders of this club going forward. And it's really good to see those two really step up when it mattered, take control, take the lead, and go follow us. Follow us, Oliver Dempsey. Follow us, Tanner Bruin and Toby Conway. And I thought it was really pleasing to see these young guys go, no, this is our time. It doesn't matter if Dangerfield's not here. It doesn't matter if Mark Blixavs is in here. We're going to step up. We're going to take control. And we're going to win this game. And that was a really fantastic part. It wasn't Jeremy Cameron, Tom Hawkins, Tom Stewart, all that winning the game for us. It was the young guys. It was your Zach Guthrie's, as I said, Jack Bowes, Tom Atkins, Oliver Dempsey, even Ocean Mullen. I thought he played a really, really good game. The only issue was his kicking, which can be fixed. But apart from his kicking, which, he'll be the first to admit, it's not up to AFL standard yet, but everything he brings is at AFL standard, and he brings a lot of pressure, brings tackle. He seems to be able to shut a forward line player down. And I never really worried when he was in a contest against another player. it was just his kicking that I was a little bit worried about.
Mm.
But the other team made it work for him. So, yeah, I think if you have an issue with selections, I think this game is sort of should have put that away. Yeah, there's players in the VFL that, yeah, probably do deserve a position in this AFL side. But who do you drop to bring in? Do you drop your young guys that are coming through now to give these other young guys a go, or do you persist with these guys and train, Mitch Hardy's, Closey's, Humphreys in
Mm.
the VFL until we don't have a Mark Blixsavs or a Patrick Dangerfield or Tom Stewart, Tom Hawkins, and all that. So yeah, I was really pleased with how they performed. They got the nod of approval from Chris Scott and the coaching crew, saying we believe that you guys can do it. We don't need to bring in anyone new. We got full trust in you. So yeah, I think the Cats fans need to follow that example as well and go, we trust this team that's going out there. This is the best team for this team to go and win a game.
I think too, like that part of the equation here that Geelong have sort of, I suppose, created is that by backing players in, like, I know in the past few weeks there's been some talk about, oh, should Atkins go back to the VFL? We should get Ted Closey in. Should, as there always is, there's a bit of selection conjecture and stuff. And we've kind of said, well, I think we just need to get Atkins back around the ball a bit. And I think it's created a great problem now going to selection this week because you have these four guys, and I had a stat earlier. I'd added the combined production of Max Holmes, Tanner Bruin, Jack Bowes, and Tom Atkins. They'd had 111 combined disposals, over 60 contested possessions, 26 tackles, 30 clearances. They kicked 3 goals and had 4 goal assists between those 4 players. All of them got in excess of 25 touches. All of them, I believe, got in excess of 5 clearances. And so now what you've got is those 4 players, performing probably the best they have all season together. And you've got a VFL lineup that just had Ted Closey get, I think, 27 disposals and 3 goals. You had Brandon Parfitt get 34 touches and about a dozen clearances. You had George Stevens win over 30 touches. I think he kicked a goal. So now you're looking at selection and going, and add to that Mark Blixsavs to come back in, Jai Clark to potentially come back in. Now you've got a headache. Whereas if you don't stick with these players, say you do take Atkins back to the VFL, and maybe he doesn't have a brilliant week. He's a bit bummed out that he's been dropped, or you do the same thing to Bowes or whoever it might be, Tanner Bruin. But and he doesn't perform, and you bring a new guy in who also doesn't perform at AFL level, and you lose your 5th game in a row. Well, then you've got this situation where you don't have any solutions. I think the persistence and the patience with the players involved, and we've talked about it the last month in these losses, we've felt like Geelong was legitimately really close in a number of the games. I think the Demons one, in particular, was one we probably should have got a handle on and won. Port was a tough. They dug themselves a very early grave, but very nearly climbed out of it. Likewise, with the Giants game, the Suns really was the anomaly where that they did just get pretty soundly beaten. But the other games, you've lost by a kick or a handful of kicks. It's been pretty close. So I'm like you, Johnny. I like the consistency of selection. I think it's now created a great problem. We've got lots of players playing good footy, lots of players probably feeling really good about themselves. So I think you brought it up in the chat. It's a bit like the Zach Guthrie thing. Sometimes you just have to persist with players, and they do eventually pay off. And imagine how good it feels for those young guys to produce that win on the weekend.
Yeah. And you just look at Zach Guthrie now, what a crucial and hugely important player he is, and how fantastic he is because he was given that opportunity week in, week out to improve his game, get better and better and better, and now he is nearly he is one of our best defenders behind Tom Stewart.
Yeah, undoubtedly. And I thought Jack Henry had a really good game. On Saturday night, he faced 3 contested defensive one-on-ones, did not lose a single one. Had 7 intercept possessions, which was third most on the team, 5 spoils. You look at Sam de Koning, 8 intercept possessions, 8 spoils. The 8 spoils, of course, led the team. Both of them went over 90% disposal efficiency and over 75% by foot. So those 2 guys, who had copped a bit of flack at times, maybe had been just ever so slightly off their absolute best. There's lots of players feeling very good, and they should feel good because they played, so well and worked their way through the problem. I think that was an important part of what you said, Sambo. This wasn't good from the start. It started rough and they worked it out. And that's like valuable experience for a developing list.
Yeah, and not only they work it out and get over the line, but they, I think, and we've said it, but not enough people I think are saying it, is how dominant it was in the end to go from being so under the pump and so up against the wall and so disorganized and getting belted out of the middle and the back line couldn't cope, to then turning in a performance that, like, by the end of it, if you hadn't seen the whole game, you would think Geelong were 80 points up by the end of it. And so I'd really like to, if I had more time and we had you know, the luxury of more time and availability of stats, I'd really like to go through, and because some of the stats are really interesting coming out of the game, but it'd be really good to see how starkly different the first and second halves are. Because a lot of them it probably doesn't quite give it justice either way, how up against it we were, nor how well we did. The two ones that I thought were quite interesting was, and this is just to, I think, give some props on to the midfield and our off ball structure, which I think improved out of sight as well. There was a specific moment that I pointed out during the game where Tom Atkins told Bose where to go. The ball. It was so last minute. They acted so quickly. The ball had left the umpire's hand to be bounced, and Tom Atkins is bellowing over the top and pointing up ahead. And Jack Bose just jumps over exactly where Tom Atkins points, and the ball just came straight to him, and he ran off, and we got a goal out of it. Like, it was really, and I think it was really good to see for Atkins, who's, I think he takes things on his shoulders a lot, but in too much of an insular way. Sometimes he gets down on himself. I think he can think, oh, the midfield's not doing well. I'm not doing well. I'm not doing well. But the way that they operated together and they were communicating in that second half was, I think, more significant than how any of them performed as an individual player. Nobody necessarily hoisted the back on their shoulders in that second half and got stats that are going to set the newspapers alight. It was just how they started operating as a team. But yeah, the 2 stats were that for our season, that's the lowest opposition score to come from stoppage, which I think is significant given how many scores came from stoppage in the first half. So that, I think to show how few came in, and it's the third lowest opposition score from their defensive half. Sorry, I'm getting choked up. It's emotional.
It is emotional.
Very emotional.
Absolutely.
So third lowest opposition score from defensive half of the year, combined with the least amount of opposition inside 50s. So this all goes to show, to me, to throw more flowers on the midfield and go, they weren't able to get it out of their defensive half. They weren't able to score from their defensive half. And we wouldn't let them get the inside 50s. So I think that off-ball structure that we always talk about, that, and you saw that change. It just shifted from Richmond moving at the speed of sound, to like having to like stop and slow down and look around, and kick it back, kick it laterally. And that's when Geelong's structure off ball where you can't see it on the broadcast because it never zooms out far enough to see that stuff. So you've just got to look at how it's affecting the opposition. And yeah, I just think that, and this isn't to rag on the defense either, because I think they also stepped up. But I think the way we were able to sort of strangle the life out of them before it even got there is a really important component. And then we get as I said earlier, then we get the midfield operating at peak efficiency. And I think it's an incredibly tough combination to beat. A team that can score off stoppage and also kill you on turnover from the defensive half.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more with
Yeah.
all of that. And the Cats, 45-38, they won the clearances. They won the centre clearances 15-9, both areas that they've copped some flack in. Won the contested footy 148-125. And again, this was a game where they weren't winning the clearances from the start. It was pretty dramatic deficit early, and Geelong were able to amend it. I think they're great moments that you've talked about there with Atkins. And as you said, it's as much about how they learn to play as a group as it is what they do individually. Johnny, Sambo, we're going to do our votes now, and then we're going to close out the show by talking about some players, either who were close to your votes but didn't get in, or just maybe a couple little specific moments. I've got a moment I'd like to talk about from a player who wasn't near my votes, but I just wanted to bring attention to it because I thought it was an important moment. You lead us off, Johnny, with your 1, 2, and 3.
All right. It was tough to do votes this week. I really only had 3 players that I knew were going to get my 1, 2, 3. I was just trying to find a way to put these 3 guys in order. And to be fair, any one of these 3 guys deserves the 3 votes this week because they all played a hugely crucial role in getting this win. But I'm going 1 vote, giving to Jack Bowes. I think by far one of his best games in the hoops. It was really fantastic to see him, as I said earlier, take the lead when someone needed to take the lead. And it wasn't just him, it was a couple of other players that also took the lead with him and like, it's our time to shine, our time to lead this club on to greater glories. And just what he's able to do was just fantastic. With some elite kicking, an absolutely fantastic goal, tackling, and as Sam said, working with Tom Atkins in the middle was just, it was a joy to watch. It was a joy to watch him become a Cats player and hopefully win a lot of Cats fans' hearts because, well, he's won mine of many, many games ago, but I think this one is one where a lot of other Cats fans will go, oh, yep, he is pretty special. Giving my 2 votes to Oliver Dempsey. Sam said on the night, Oliver Dempsey is going to win us a game soon. Well, I reckon Oliver Dempsey won us this game with 2 pretty crucial goals, 2 pretty incredible goals as well. Like, what an absolute star he's going to become for the Cats. Quick thinking, extremely clever with his insight in the game and footy smarts. That's like some of the kicks he's able to pull off are just incredible, and his vision is also elite. So when he gets, I'm not going to say confidence, but when his skills and his ability and his muscles and everything else start to develop, he's going to become a absolute beast for the Cats. And I'm giving my 3 votes to Tom Atkins. I mean, just quarter 1, quarter 4, I thought Tom Atkins was playing his absolute heart out. And once Bowes and Oliver Dempsey, got control of their area, you could just see Tom Atkins was like, beautiful. Time to really start going to work. And off to work he did. What was his stats? Had his stats. Tom Atkins, 27 disposals, 11 tackles, 10 clearances, 392 meters gained, 69% of the time on ground. It was just, a really crucial game, and one I think that proves why we need to have him around the ball and around that center, because he can be the next leader, the next Dangerfield, the next Joel Selwood, lifting the team off of his shoulders, going, follow me onto the breach one last time.
It's interesting. We've made the Vikings, comparison before here in the later seasons of Vikings when they, spoiler alert, don't listen on if you haven't watched Vikings and you don't want it spoiled. When they kill old Ragnar off and they divide his character traits between his 4 sons or whatever it was. I sort of feel like we've talked about that with Selwood. I thought that was very much on show. On the weekend, with different players picking up certain aspects of Selwood and Dangerfield, their games. I'll just whip real quick through my votes and then over to you, Sambo. I had Atkins for 1 vote. I had Jack Bowes for 2 votes. I had Ollie Dempsey for 3 votes. And as you said, Sam, on the couch with, Ollie Dempsey, he's the sort of player who can win you a game. He seems like, and he, definitely turned up and did that. And I would just say that something I said to you, and I thought you saw it on the night, was he believes in his own capabilities and powers. I don't think you say it's our turn if you don't believe in your own game. But what I really absolutely love about Ollie Dempsey, maybe the most, is I think he believes in his teammates. And he's always looking to bring his teammates into the game. He had 2 goal assists to go with his own 3 goals. And I just think he's such a sharing sort of player. He's always looking to get involved in a link of possession. So I just love that about the way he plays. Sambo, what were your votes?
I'll be as quick as I can as well. I think you guys have covered it. I think I've got the same players, just remixed a little again.
As I said,
I've got,
they're interchangeable, these
Yeah.
3.
I think Holmes probably stiff not to work in somewhere. I don't think he got any votes from any of us
Yeah.
hoops, but it's a bit tough too because he's starting to turn up so consistently. That his good games don't look like great games anymore because he so it's a bit bit stiff for Holmesy. I'm giving my 1 to Ollie Dempsey. I do think he more or less helped turn that game around and won it. So 1 vote's maybe a bit short into the stick there a little bit, but I think I do just subjectively value those defensive efforts often, I think, higher than offensive efforts. And that's why I've got 2 votes Jack Bowes and my 3 votes going to Tom Atkins. I think you guys covered it well, but I will just chuck in he was team high for contested possessions. He had 5 score involvements. He was second team high for center clearances. And he was also team high in tackles and clear overall clearances. So I just think it's pretty hard not to give. I know it's a midfielder's game and it's unfair, but when you put Tom Atkins in the midfield and he has a game like that, I find it very difficult not to give him the 3.
Yeah, and he was team high in things like pressure acts as well. I don't know if you mentioned that there, but it's just his ability to impact the game defensively and attacking. To not only have all those clearances, but to then have all those tackles, all those pressure efforts. He's a 2-way player. Yeah, love him to bits, and we're going to talk about him and Bowes a lot in the Patreon player focus. Just a couple of minutes here. I'll start us off. Then we'll go to Sam, then to Johnny. With just any other notes you want to spill out on players, I'm just going to focus in on Shannon Neal. He kicked the 2 goals. I was just trying to have a look what he did in terms of marks. Took 7 marks, 12 touches, 256 meters gained, kicked the 2 goals. Goal assists 1. And that's the one I want to focus in on because I think this is an important piece of his development. Got the ball, looked up, could have launched for goal himself from about 50 out. You can see in players like him, young forwards who want to kick goals, they want to, do it themselves, put snags on the board and say, look, I'm here, pick me every week. But what he then did is what will get him further selection down the line. And that is he didn't pull the trigger himself. He looked up, spotted up a teammate, and that teammate took a mark and went back and kicked the goal. that to me was the best part of Shannon Neal's game. And I thought it's a really, really important little bit of development. You saw Phoenix Foster do almost exactly the same thing in the VFL. Collected a loose ball on the edge of 50, looked up, I could have a go here. Nah, I'm going to pull it to a teammate in better position. That player will kick a goal. So I just wanted to highlight that from Shannon Neal. It's really tough as a young forward trying to earn your spot week in, week out to not just go for glory. And he didn't. He did the right thing. He did the team first thing, and I absolutely loved to see it. Sambo, a player note from you?
I thought Brad Close was another one who didn't necessarily have the greatest first and second quarter, but really pulled the socks up and pulled the sleeves down, and it was kind of to the point where I almost mentioned it to you guys sitting there watching the game. I said, I haven't really cited Brad Close, and I just thought he had a really solid kind of, as is our want to do on this podcast, we talk about the perfect game for each player, not necessarily the perfect game of football. And I think he came close to what you expect from Close. His involvements in the forward line, both offensively and defensively. Fourth most pressure acts for the team. And I think most of those in the second half, I would imagine. And just a couple of great tackles and great moments where it's like, yes, that's, I feel like we haven't seen that from him and it might be that he's a bit like Myers, where it's like when the team is down, his role can get pushed to the side. It might not be his fault. It might not be that he's not playing well. It's that we're not allowing him into the game. We're not bringing him to the game because the team's not working. So it's not necessarily me saying he's been playing bad, but we just certainly haven't seen that kind of stuff from him. And I thought we really started to see that emerge again. And it was sort of remind me why he was such a fan favorite over the last couple of seasons.
Johnny?
I'm going to go with a big new ruckman, Toby Conway. I thought this was another really promising game by him. Yeah, he may have been outworked in the rucking department, but he's only played 5 games. But I thought the rest of his work around the ground was pretty good, like pretty exceptional. He had 14 disposals, 2 kicks, 12 handballs, so handball heavy. But I tell you what, he was pretty clever with his handballs. 4 marks, 3 tackles. So not bad for a big man playing his 5th or 6th game. 71% disposal efficiency. I just thought it was another really good, fantastic game. He had 4 score involvements, 1 goal assist. Only 64 minutes game, but I still thought like what we want to see from Toby Conway, we definitely got for in this game. Is we just want to have a really good ruckman that can follow up on some groundwork, and I thought that's what we got this week. It's just now developing his game going forward, and his foundation for a ruckman is pretty remarkable. And I think same as Zach Guthrie, the more games he gets under his belt, the better he's going to become. And who knows, in 1 to 2 years, we'll be going Toby Conway's best ruck in the competition, all Australian ruck, dominating everything, taking marks, kicking goals, running around the ground like he's on air. So yeah, I thought this was a really good game, good step by him, and helped the Cats get over the line.
Love it. And Conway for me is probably in that Ollie Dempsey 2023 sort of temperature zone right now. They're getting some games into him. He's going to get found out at times, but this is the only proving ground where he's going to really learn and develop because he's shown he's way too good to be playing VFL. But he's not quite yet worked out how to apply his trade at the AFL level, but you got to give him games. So I think 2025, we're going to see exactly the kind of player that Toby Conway can be. And this is just the apprenticeship year at the top level. So yeah, loved it. I just wanted to mention too, he had the fifth most pressure acts for the team. So I thought that was something nice to see. If you are getting beaten in the ruck, to be able to follow up with 20 pressure acts for a big man, I thought that was a really promising sign there. All right, that is the end of the best on ground votes section. That's the end of our player thoughts. That's the end of the show. We're about to go on over to the Patreon player focus and talk about Jack Bowes, Tom Atkins a bit more, their sort of performances individually, what it meant for the team, what we took away from it. So if you want to get access to that part of the show, make sure you go and sign up to the Hoops Crew Patreon. You can start a 7-day free trial now. You get extended versions of the podcast. You get Wednesday news wraps with Ben, sometimes me when my day job allows. VFL men's and women's coverage, early access to behind the play interview episodes with Paul, and other things from time to time. All right. That's all from us. Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate your support. Thanks for listening as well to our podcast, the OGs. Until next time, go Cats.
Go Cats.
Go Cats!